high class and professional presentations. So as you heard, I'm Clayton. I'm going to talk through basically what is communication design. I hope that slide is nice and large on the screen. So welcome to what is now 190 days of lockdown. Can you believe it? I think when I put the slide up, we were only into like day 17, long ago. So my thing is about graphic design, and that's a sort of old term for it. We really refer to it more as communication design because it's changed. It's no longer a skill set where you just do what you're told. This, as Francois elaborated on, combines everything from conceptual thinking to business strategy skill sets and critical thinking that you get from Desiree. In terms of what it is, it's really, in essence, the stuff that surrounds you. So think of like when you wake up in the mornings, everything from, if you do breakfast, hopefully you do, from reaching for that milk carton, the cereal box, the coffee, the packaging the coffee's in, the design on the coffee, everything you encounter, to the clothes you wear, the branding on them, the shops you buy from, that's all design. So it covers every facet of the things that we encounter. And it does go through to app design, which I think our esteemed lecturer Volt will handle just now, superbly as well, no doubt. So in the slide, there's a smattering of what it entails, but it is everything that fits your built environment, basically the world in which we live. It's from a sort of tactile point of view, manually or analog, to the digital interactions that we have. That is all part of communication design. And on this one, it's some of the facets that you look into. So it's like identity, where you'd be looking at establishing the look and feel for a business, be it personal branding, or in this case, it's for like a kitchen, where you've got to establish a look and feel for a place that's aimed at a specific target audience. So it's a lot of thinking, it's a lot of research, it's a lot of branding, I suppose, in terms of like who is the target audience for that, and developing the appropriate look and feel in the appropriate mediums. So you also learn to combine a lot of things, which means you develop a skill set from the subjects that you're taught here, and combine them in, like in this instance, communications that are for book covers. And here's an array of like design techniques, if you want, which lend themselves from illustration to drawing to photography. So you learn to design appropriate communications for the business that you're like targeting, and in this case, the author and the target audience who would actually respond to that. So your job is a visual representation of your concepts, and you've got to go through a lot of back and forth with the clients, but that's part of your job to get them to buy this. So if you design a book cover, you've got to look at things like shelf impact. That's the key thing, to make it actually like work. How's it going to stand out? Does it convey the right message, and does it convey some insight into the writing in the book? On something like this is packaging, and these are all like sort of industry examples. Again, it's target audience. What are you going to say about the gin on the right as opposed to the gin on the left? One is for Mr. Hyde, and you can see the obviously leanings in the choice of container compared to the more bespoke, traditional sort of loch that you have on the right-hand side. So both are craft, but they've got different target audiences. The blue one, yeah, if you're into more experimental, the one on the right, more temperamental, in terms of it's more traditional. You also look at things like product innovation. That's quite crucial, because sometimes besides just choosing a container, you're asked to actually, how can you add a bit of value? So sometimes you look at things like this, where instead of the whole pasta just being put in a box, in this case, you can actually pour out serviettes, because not many of us have those serviettes with little like holes in them, so that you can actually get the correct amount. So this actually is a solution to that problem, where you've got that slide on top there, where you can actually sift out the correct amount of spaghetti. And here's two solutions to the same concept of how do I do this. So the other one has cardboard flaps, the other one has a slightly more expensive iteration on top where it swivels. And you then choose, like, one's a spiral wound tube and the other one's more of a constructed packaging. So there's various solutions to do that, and that is your job as a designer, to come up with a solution to a problem. You'll always be given a problem to resolve. It's not you just design things. You've got a client who would actually have, how do I get this across to your target audience better? Because you're competing with other products and other brands out there. So part of the thing you do look at is design techniques. And I love that sort of section because it's tactile. In other words, like you've seen the examples maybe on the far right there, with something called debossing. And on the wine label, it's the same thing, where it's that tactile interaction. Design has that affordability. Where the one in the sort of second left there, where you've got gold silk screened over, and then on the first one where someone's thank you printed on nice trace paper and it's foiled, which is more expensive, but it says that visually as well. So in other words, it's a real thank you. Hopefully those gifts lived up to it. On this one, it takes you into the realm of the digital, because as a designer, you have to work in both realms. So you have to, if it's, for instance, a coffee shop, design an app for it so that people can actually order their coffee online, so it can be delivered to them, or you can order it so when you go pop down, you can just simply pick it up on your way somewhere else. So again, you design it according to that look and feel you've created, maybe like that kitchen one in the first example. But there's a synergy between what you design in terms of a piece of branding that exists in terms of signage, business cards, packaging, to how that would flow through onto a website, how that would flow through onto an app. But they're not there for, oh, we must have an app. It must actually perform a function for that particular brand. We'll also go into fields like editorial, and you've got to, again, communicate content to a certain target audience. And you've got to give insights in the magazine. And if you're the designer, you're actually called an art director, bizarrely there. You look at your layout. How does your layout, using photography, illustration, typography, communicate that ethos across to a target audience? So you get to learn to combine all these skill sets as a communication designer. These are fun projects if you ever get them. Some people actually specialize in this. This would be like environmental design, and of course it's window display with budgets. And that's, I think if you look at certain shopping centers, they do tend to theme them around Valentine's Day and Christmas, so be careful of forthcoming attractions. But it's like, how do you again engage with your specific target audience? So if you're Levi's, you're very different to the jewelry store maybe across the road from it. You're going to have a different target audience, a different visual representation in your windows. So it just gives you the range of and scope of design as it is. In terms of the course structure itself, this isn't time to have a snack break, but it's about choice. Like with the donuts, that you would get a whole range of subjects in your first year. You get a taste of all the big majors that you will eventually decide on at the end of the first year, as Francois had said earlier. So you'd look at your motion studies, your interaction studies, and of course, communication design. So you get a taste of all those, and then you make a decision. So if you did decide on communication design, you'd look at choosing a major, which would be your comm design, and a minor. So it's about choice, because this would be your major, and then going through into your minors, you'd have a choice of 2. So in this one, you could choose animation, you could, and we could choose photography animation. So it gives you that ability to combine 2 distinct skill sets, your major, and then 2 other subjects that you would have had a taste of on the donut section in first year, as to what would best complement your portfolio. Because you've got to walk out there with a competitive portfolio that'll get you a job at the end of the day. In third year, obviously you're still doing your major as comm design, but you've only got 1 minor now. So you would choose from the 2 that you had and take one of those 3. Could be illustration, photography, or animation. The key thing that we push here is the ability to combine three crucial skills. That's your conceptual thinking, critical thinking, and the crafting of your work so that it's up to industry standard. And as I said earlier, you'll always get a problem to solve. So that's what you've got to do as a designer. And you've got to look for an insight and preferably challenge the brief. And that's what you develop. So an insight is in terms of how do people actually behave? How do they consume things, and how can you leverage that? And it's like this, why do people steal soap from hotels? It's weird, but they do. So this is one that actually almost promises you to do it and plays on that very insight. Why do people drive SUVs? And they want to be seen as such. And this is like, how do you talk to that target audience in the environment? So for me, it's like kind of the original UI and UX all into one before it became all digital. Skills integration is crucial because you draw on a lot of skill sets, like those book covers. And no, you don't have to draw. It's not about drawing, it's about communication. And here's an example of one of our students did something on a singer called Tatsuro Yamashita. Way back in 1982, he had a hit song called Right on Time. And she did the vinyl for this. So this is a final vinyl design. It's based on skill sets she learned way back in first year, where she would combine, like from her scamps to do it into what would have been the DeLorean of Back to the Future, the silkscreen of the time. So you start in first year, you start with a bit of analog skills as them in first year, just before lockdown, bit of hand-down type, which I move quickly into looking at messaging and ads and how can I scamp this up and deliver a better communication in terms of layout. And this is the example there. So this is first year's literally 1 week after spilling ink all over themselves. And this one as well, taking the same elements, you can't add more in, and restructuring this so it gives you better communication. So it's teaching them about visual hierarchy. And then the first years I've just like finished with them now, in that they have done the same process again of coming up with some packaging and took it through the scamping on the top there, that's rough sketches, reworking these into like a little bit of pattern and illustrations which translate into the package on the right, obviously for coffee, and then this one is up for milk. Same process, and you can see within literally 3 terms how quickly we move through things, and we combine everything from illustration, visual techniques in first year, through to packaging skills and digital skills and how to get them onto physical mock-up like these. There's another example here for light bulbs, where the sketches gets translated into digital format, and then onto the packaging where it highlights the type of bulb it is, and you can see they would work as a series quite easily. Identity, as I said, is quite a crucial part of what we do because it's your kind of your bread and butter. So this is one for Molokai Architects, which combines African and Japanese architectural practices. So you have the mud and bamboo, which is the mud represented by the thicker M and the thinner K being your bamboo constructs. And you would follow this into your, I suppose, your identity iterations, which is everything from signage, business cards, presentation folders, and that would go onto your website and all the other sort of brochures, paraphernalia that would be appropriate to an architectural practice. If one looks at packaging itself, this is all student work you see now, that this was to, how can I make milk, soy milk, as a better alternative, a more attractive alternative. So to compete with proper milk, and it's looking at the sort of ethical consumption of milk, which, if you don't know, cows are one of the biggest. I think they contribute almost 30% of methane into the air. That's not from their back ends, it's actually from their front ends. They belch. So on this one, it's actually looking at how do I make the milk alternatives, which have less of an environmental impact, more attractive to consumers, to consider them as an alternative. And this is soy milk, and they physically made up these packaging examples you're seeing. And the pattern is derived from the crops and the dots from the soy, the actual beans that they would grow, and the leaf patterns are in there as well. So this is third year work where you're looking at flat die line work and pulling that through into communication. The the donuts again. But this is a bit more of your branding, but now been taken through onto livery. So it's, you know, designing in this case, it's a dessert truck, which would go around, as a food truck. And how do you take your branding, which would appear on a business card naturally, but this is your biggest business card. And how do your consumers encounter this? And visually, it should tell you what kind of attitude it has, and also the price of the donuts that you would pay. Is it fun? It should tell you that visually as well. It's more fun, it's not serious. And you can see that again, the process we go through from Scamping Up to the digital renditions that you're seeing here. And there's another brand for House, which encapsulates all South African designers inside it, product designers, industrial designers if you want. So it's, again, it's the iteration of a logo towards a defined target audience. And you would take this through into physical contact material and digital as well. And here's somebody doing one similar, just called Habitué this year, and it's a different look and feel because the target audience is different in terms of products on the right, and you can see it iterates into the digital of your app design, your mobile, and your web design components. So I'm just going to go quickly through these to give somebody else a chance. But we do look at the ethics of consumption. This is your critical thinking that we do get from critical studies. It's again looking at food consumption. What is the real cost of food, and giving you a choice? And this is for a place called Now. It's to make people eat consciously. And what they do is looking at the cost in terms of what you're eating and its emissions that are, well, it's sort of generated by that, and looking at the choice between a vegan burger made from lentils, macadamia, that's a bit of bread, to the one with beef cheese, and how much emissions are utilized from taking that through. So we teach them how do you then communicate that to your target audience and how to get that across. And this is one for looking at the great whites and how they've sort of disappeared from False Bay. And with a bit of investigation, it's seen as that the gummy sharks, which they feed on, these are those ones that you might have seen in that latest movie about the octopus teacher, is now being shipped over to Australia. So the great whites are losing their food source, not the orcas. Editorial, using your own photographs. This could have been from your minor, which in the student's work it was, taking that through and to do the magazine brief in communication design, which shows how you link the two together. And I think that's crucial. And that's what she has in her portfolio. I can take these photographs and I can put them in an editorial. And this is some of Robin's work, who spoke earlier. Some of her editorial for true crime series. She has this leaning towards that. Other editorials done in third year, and these are ones that you can see are aimed at different target audiences. So then, therefore, you use photography, illustration, and typography quite differently to communicate. And lastly, this is a bit of type origination, which was a project I set for third years, where they've got to originate the typeface from somewhere, and this is about the jelly, those bad 70s molds that you got. And the typeface is generated from one of the top of the jelly mold itself that comes out, and it's that segment with the ellipse that you can hopefully see in the second tier of this delightful substance here, which was taken through into becoming a font, which generated it into, from those rough sketches digitally, into upper and lowercase, and is then utilized in practice. And that would be put out there where you could use a slightly retro font like this and apply it. And I'm going to ask Robin if she can talk to some of her work, which she did quite briefly. If you can, Robin, is that okay?
Yes, all good.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a project I did, I think last term. It is a project for an exhibition, like a final grad exhibition, and I kind of had to set up the whole identity for that. So the concept I went with, it's called Blood, Sweat, Tears, and Other Liquids, and it kind of talks about like what it takes to make work that is worthy of the exhibition and to actually finish everything. But it also like plays off of DNA, or a very abstract type of DNA, kind of like your creative composition, like what is inside you and what you like gave to the project. Yeah, in a nutshell, that's what the concept is. Yeah, so I made a series of posters. This isn't even all of them. I made so many. So I painted with paint and brushes and scanned it in and got these really cool swirls that are meant to reference kind of the nature of DNA as being very intertwined. Yeah, and I paired it with a super bold like typeface. This is Helvetica. And yeah, I just used some crazy colors. I also tried to use like the classic CMYK, but change the yellow for gold. Yeah. Yeah, these are some more posters, just like emphasizing the and other liquids. Yeah, and then basically the posters expanded. They could go on to a wide range of surfaces. These are bus stop mock-ups, what they would look like kind of if you were driving on the bus or driving through the town where the exhibition is, and you would see different posters at different places, but you would know they all relate, but they're not like repetitive in that way. Yeah, here are some wheat paste mock-ups of what it would look like just on a wall in the street, kind of like street art. Yeah. Oh, I didn't mention this. As part of the exhibition, when you go in, you get, and also as a direct mailer that you would send to like a company to promote it, you would get like an ID card, and on that ID card you would fill in your personal combination of blood, sweat, tears, and other liquids that it takes you to do your job and to get everything done. Yeah, and with this come little paints that like represent the blood, sweat, and the tears in the little box. And the ID card idea is kind of to put them all up together at the site of the exhibition to show like the range of people that came and what everyone puts into their work.
That's cool. And one last one.
These are just like this is an exhibition book, and the ID card the ID card for the artist would be similar to the previous ones that you would send out. It would just be like on them. But yeah, that's the concept of the project. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Robin. I think that's brilliant. Please, if there are any questions, ask either myself, Francois, or Robin, what it's like to be a student here. You got 5 minutes left. I've sort of pushed it to 5 so that